Hey folks, it's no surprise AI has taken the industry by storm these last couple of years, ever since ChatGPT hit the mainstream. And while we've seen a lot of varying use cases for AI, from document curation to database analysis to image generation, right? There's one question that I've seen come up again and again over the last several months is, how can SysAdmins use AI? And so today I've got Mike Nelson, a new face on the show today. He's also a Microsoft MVP like myself and Eric and some of our other guests. He's going to come on the show and we're going to talk about how sysadmins can make use of generative AI in their day-to-day, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into AI agents as well as the model context protocol as well. So that and lots more in today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast and your show by sysadmins for sysadmins and dedicated to all those tireless tech folks working in the trenches, sweating, toiling, and, well, keeping our digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Surwich, and I've got a new face on with me today. I've got Mike Nelson. How's it going, Mike?
Good, Andy. How are you, man?
Doing good. Hey, you and I have done podcasts before for other shows. We've recorded various videos over the year. We might have even done a webinar or two together. I don't remember, but it's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been a little while. Congrats on the renewal, the MVP. That's awesome.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. You as well.
Yeah, thanks.
So for those that aren't aware, Mike and I are both part of the Microsoft MVP program. I'm in the security competency. Are you a dual MVP, Mike, if I remember right?
Yeah, I got dual 2 years ago. So actually, it's cloud and data center, right? So that's how I actually met Andy. For everybody that wants to know, is we actually walked into the same room together. And to be honest, he was, I think you were a year ahead of me. So you got it a year before I did. But I walked in and I was like scared because some of these people that were in the room, I had basically my heroes. I idolized when I was, it's like, holy crap, that's it, And Andy and I were actually sitting at the front of the room. And it was like we never met each other before. So that's how a friendship started, and we ended up hanging out at all the MVP summits and stuff like that. So,
it's a great time, and great community, and I've met a lot of folks that way, and I totally get what you're saying too about like the intimidation factor. I've been in the program for 12 years, and there are still times where I walk in a room and I'm like, is that Rusinovich over there? Or is that Jeffrey Snover over there? Like, what's going on? You suddenly feel very small all of a sudden. But what's funny is all those people would be the first to tell you, like, no, like, it's cool,
Especially Jeffrey. Jeffrey would be like, sure. What, like, no, don't even take pictures of me. I'm ugly, and stuff like that. I mean, that's Jeffrey, right? I got to tell you a little side story. Has happened to me like 2 years ago, actually right after COVID, when we went to Ignite, and I got to speak there. And I was in the speaker room. You know how they had like two or three speaker rooms, and they're like huge areas where they have these big tables set out, and you can do your thing, get ready for your session and all that. And I'm sitting there, and maybe I told you this story, I'm not sure, but I was sitting there and I'm like beating my head against the wall saying, oh my God, I got to do this presentation. And, I'm gonna, screw it up. Well, lo and behold, I'm sitting there and I'm totally focused on my laptop and everything. And I look up, and who sits down right across the table from me? I mean, literally, like, sits down and he looks at me and he's like, how's it going? Mark Rusinovich. And I'm like, I was like starstruck. I was like, hi, how you doing, Mark?
Man, I'd probably do the same thing. Like I said, I've been programmed for 12 years, and I would probably do the same thing. And just for those that may not know, Mark Rusinovich, I forget what his title is, but Basically, he's the technical lead of Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, he owns Azure, basically.
Yeah.
He runs it, basically. But he's been around forever. The guy's like, and if you don't know this, the guy's like 7.5 feet tall or something, isn't he? It's something crazy. And
he's really tall.
Yeah. But he's literally, he noticed that I was struggling. He was like, so you got a presentation? I'm like, yeah. I can't believe you're talking to me. Yeah. But he's like, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I've been doing this for so long. It just doesn't, don't let it bother you. Just don't, and he's just like talking to me like a normal guy. And I'm like, this is so cool.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm getting a little mushy because I'm like, at the time it was a really cool thing. Now I see him and it's like, oh, hey, Mark. Hey.
Yeah, no, I get it. I have a very similar thing with Jeffrey Snover. And again, for those people that may not know who Jeffrey Snover is, largely credited as the creator of PowerShell. And he joked with me on a video he and I recorded one time where he's like, yeah, it's cool and great. I created PowerShell and all, but he's like, I was also one of the principal architects of Windows Server. And he's like, that's something you put on your tombstone. And I'm like, fair point. In fact, I have it on my list over here. I'd love to get Jeffrey on the show to tell the story of Windows Server, right?
Oh, my.
That's my plan. Fingers crossed if he's got time for it.
He went into that a little bit at the PowerShell Summit. So he did the keynote at PowerShell Summit. And he actually went into a little bit his whole interview process and almost, when he almost got fired, and all that. He talked all about that. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
I got to make that happen here. So one of these days. Anyway, so Mike, before we get over to our starting segments and our main topic, we've already talked about the MVP program. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners / viewers about yourself before we get moving on?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I started out in infrastructure, right? So I was an analyst to begin with. I worked help desk. I worked my way up the ranks. I went to analyst. I became a technician. I would go out on service calls, believe it or not, and go and fix Epson printers and line printers, if you remember, those big things. I was a night operator on a System 38. If anybody in the IBM world is out there, they know what I'm talking about. QSysOper. That's what I was. So I did a lot of things and I was involved in a lot of environments, which was really cool because it gave me a really wide background. And I worked in different verticals. I worked in healthcare. I worked in insurance. I worked in finance. And I just kind of stepped through the ladder. I went from engineering up into architecture. And I ended up being a cloud architect, and now I'm actually an evangelist, so I kind of cover everything, if you will. But it's been a great journey. It's been a long one. I've been doing this for. You and I are old guys.
Yep. We've got the gray hair to prove it.
But yeah, we've been doing this a long time. I'm pushing, my career is pushing, I think 35 years now.
You got more than me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun ride. It really has. And right now I've been working for, this company, in a situation where it's, I do a lot of the technical evangelism. And I focus on that, and presentations and user groups and community, which I have an incredible passion for the community, and I know you do too. It's something that is beyond. If I had a choice of anything I could do, I would just do community. I had no doubt in my mind. I would drop everything technical. If I forgot how to do everything technical and still be involved in the community, I'd do it without a doubt. So it's been a great ride, and I've got a countdown timer on my phone now that to my retirement. So, 2,246 days.
All right, counting down.
Yes,
counting down. So every time I have you on the show, I'm going to ask you, Mike, how many days left on the retirement countdown? So,
yes, 2031.
Right. 2031. There we go. Very cool. Well, appreciate you being here, Mike. Today we, of course, are talking about AI agents and MCP and all of the associated things. But before we get to that, two very quick intro segments that our viewers / listeners know that we do. The first one, of course, is our News React segment. And this is the segment where myself and my co-host, we each react to a news headline in the tech world that caught our eyes. And selfishly, sorry, Mike, I'm going to go first.
Yes,
so
go ahead.
The one that caught my eye is a article from ProPublica back on July 15th. And I'll link the article in the show notes. But what was eye-catching about this? Basically, the heading here was, a little-known Microsoft program could expose the Defense Department to Chinese hackers. So everyone knows that being as I work for a security vendor, I tend to look at the world through the lens of security, right? And so what caught my eye here, and the general gist of the article basically says that for years, I guess, Microsoft has been using tech support out of China for support of the U.S. Defense Department, which I have to say, I have no issues with people from China, but from a defense perspective, it's a little questionable, right? And not to mention just that, the other interesting thing here is that it's almost like Microsoft realized that this could be a potential espionage situation. So all of these workers had, I don't know how else to say it, had a babysitter, basically. They were known as digital escorts. And basically it was their job to keep an eye on these, Chinese support workers.
But they weren't digital. They were real. They were real. They weren't digital.
Right. And they were, where is it? I'm scrolling through the article here. If I remember correctly, and of course I can't find it right off the top of my head. If I remember correctly, these people were paid $18 an hour, which, again, looking at this from a security perspective, from an espionage point of view, I'm thinking it probably wouldn't take much to bribe these people, but that's just me.
No, I really want to see the job description. I really want to see that rec, and see what's involved there, because, you get down to it is what are the qualifications? What,
Yeah, this was an interesting one for sure. So I've gotten through, like I said, probably 80% of the article, but I keep raising my eyebrows as I'm going through. So it's an interesting read. So I'll link that in the show notes, folks.
Awesome.
Mike,
awesome.
What do you got?
Yeah, I don't actually have a headline, and I apologize for that. I'm new to the show. I'll just call myself a noob. So
And I may or may not have gotten you the outline for this episode, 90 seconds.
I was covering for you, Andy. I was covering for you. Okay.
So this might be my fault, folks.
No, this is something that my and I, like I had mentioned in our previous conversation, Andy, was something my wife and I had discussed recently, and it was something that came up with her. And she's a digital analyst. They call it a digital analyst, where she is digital transformation, enablement, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But she had come across a article or a news story, I'm not sure what, where it actually talked about how there are different. Remember, if you go back to the early days of the internet, in terms of when Facebook was coming to thing, MySpace was there, places like that. They started the age verification thing, right? You had to be 13 years old.
Yeah.
In order to, set up an account to do something. And even email, they were like, at the time, they were like, yeah, you got to be 13 years old to have an email account. Well, that's not true anymore. But what is interesting is that we're going to a couple sites, and they're asking for age verification as a gateway to see normal things, aka normal things. And what I mean by that is we go to a vacation rental, like an Airbnb, but it's not Airbnb, it's a vacation home rental site. And it actually asks you for age verification before you go into the site. And I'm like, what am I going to see? That a person of, and they don't tell you what the minimum age is. They just ask for the age verification. And I'm like, why? What I'm not understanding this. And even to the point of, as you notice behind me, I do a lot of 3D printing. And one of the major 3D printer model sites, the ones that provides models, now requires you to verify your age. Okay. And what it does is it actually sends you an email. So it's doing like a two-factor age authentication type deal where you have to verify your age by responding to an email. Okay. That opens up a site, and then you enter your date of birth, and then you click OK, and it lets you into the site. I'm like, what possibly could be the reasoning behind this? Is everybody getting sued for people seeing things they shouldn't when they're at at age and a young age, old age? I don't know. It just doesn't seem logical to me. But it is popping up now more and more, and she's seeing it actually, in her work. So I just find that incredibly interesting.
That is very strange.
Yeah.
Again, because I tend to look at everything through a security perspective. I'm like, okay, are they just trying to do information gathering so that they can sell that data for some reason, or
the only other thing I could
think, maybe, yeah. The only other thing I could think of is on the 3D printing stuff, is there some way that they could purchase materials that could be abused in some way? That's the only other thing I can think of from a liability perspective.
It very well could be. They could be printing. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. There very well could be, adult type of things that you can print.
Right.
So that very well could be, but they don't say it. They don't say like the minimum age or this is why you're actually doing it. They just come out and say, "What's your age?"
Right.
Why?
Be one thing. It's like, okay, well, why are you asking for age? If they told you, it'd be one thing, right? But yeah, I'm with you.
But I guess it's becoming a big thing in the UK. I guess in the UK and EMEA, their laws are a lot different, and their restrictions on user information and all that kind of stuff. And I guess it's becoming more of a big thing over there. So
yeah, that whole GDPR thing is that creates. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that would kind of play into your whole escort thing. As it kind of a little segue there. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe it's a reach. I don't know.
Good times. Well, I suppose we'll move on to our nerd hour segment of the show. And of course, everybody knows what the running joke is. It doesn't actually take an hour, but it's just the segment of the show where my co-host and I talk about the nerdy, geeky things we've been working on. And I guess I went first for the news segment, Mike. I guess I'll pass this one to you first. What are the nerdy things you've been working on lately, my friend?
Sure. It really goes to the topic of, blends in with the topic of what we want to talk about today. I've been really kind of heads down focused on home automation. And I've been transforming my home automation in terms of I was on the proprietary things. And I've kind of got, in my belief, I've gone open source and I'm trying to get more into that. But the things that you can do now with all the smart switches, smart bulbs, smart sensors, smart this, smart that, from a security perspective, I'm sure you're going to give me an earful about, you don't want those things on your Wi-Fi and you don't want, so on and so forth. But at the same time, I look at it from an automation perspective, because it's gotten to a point where I don't think I remember a time now where I would have to come home and actually manually turn on my garage lights, because now I come home and it automatically comes on because it senses my presence.
Right.
These are things that, we never dreamed of, even 20 years ago. And now you can basically do that. You set up workflows, you set up, the automations, the scripts, and the integrations. I mean, you can get these things for dirt cheap. And you can create your own, you get an ESP board, and basically, you can solder and you can, follow instructions from a YouTube video or, in GitHub. You can create your own sensors, your humidity, temperature, all that kind of stuff. And that's actually one of the ones that I'm working on for my 3D printing, is an all-in-one sensor. Now I could buy one. I could go out and buy one, but I'm like, I want to learn how to make one of these things, right? So I'm buying all the pieces and parts, and I'm like, for something I can go out and buy for, 20, $30, I'm actually putting together for about $5. And I'm learning how to actually put it all together. It's really simple stuff. It really is.
Right.
And it's incredibly simple. But the automation piece kind of, just gets you on a roll. And it's kind of addictive. And it's crazy addictive. It's like these things that I can do now is I can, and this segues into what the topic is today is AI. So they have AI integrations where I can actually, have it tell me, somebody's at the door, which is pretty common, right?
Right.
But AI can actually give me a full description of that person. They can describe their facial features. They can tell me how tall the AI thinks they are. They can tell me what the weather looks behind them. They can tell me whether or not that person, is wearing glasses, has a hat on. If they see a vehicle behind them, they can tell you about the vehicle that's behind them. All that, and AI, and you can be so flexible with it. You can basically tell it, to be sarcastic, to be snarky in its responses. So you get some, humor out of it. You get some comedy out of it,
right.
Which is really kind of cool. Because it's all things that you can invent. It's all things that you can be creative with, which it just drives me. It totally drives me to do that. And of course my family thinks I'm totally obsessed. They're just like, you're obsessed with this thing. It's just crazy. Yeah. And I get it because for me, it creates the brain movement that I need, to keep me sane. Because there's not much in this world today that keeps me sane.
I get that. Yep.
But yeah, that's what I'm working on. That's what I've been doing, spending a lot of time on, and even giving a couple presentations on, and showing demonstrations. So it's pretty cool.
I think I'll have you back on, and we'll talk about this particular topic in more detail. So I'll have to bribe you with cookies or something. So, all right.
What about you?
Well, as everybody on the show knows, I am a sucker for anything Markdown, and everybody's rolling their eyes right now, like, oh, okay, and he's talking about Markdown.
Here we go. All right.
Anyway, I have for a long time used Markdown and VS Code as my note-taking tool, right?
Sure.
I guess you could say I've now gone minimalistic or crazy. Really? I'm not sure. You guys can be the judge. But I am now using simply the command line, a terminal with Vim and Git for all of my Markdown stuff now. Oh, there's one other thing, because I need to be able to render Markdown for a preview in the command line. I also use a tool called Glow. So Glow will actually render Markdown to the command line. So, and of course I use spelling and I use linting tools as well to make sure I'm following all the proper formatting and stuff. But
don't tell me you use Glip or you use Emacs. Okay, then you're going way too far.
I'm not that crazy yet. Give me another year, Mike, and maybe I'll be using Emacs, right? No, I've always been a Vim guy myself, but anyway. So basically, I've been moving my entire documentation tool set over to just a terminal. I use Ghosty as my terminal, right? And it works very, very well. So, but yeah, at some point I'm going to do a blog post or something on it. But
that's impressive, dude, because that's quite a bit of work if you think about it. Because
it is, and
the newer tools give you all this ability and all this automation. Where like Vim, to be honest, I mean, Vim is Vim. It's not smart.
Yep. But if you know all the shortcuts and all the commands for Vim, it can be very, very quick. As long as you know it, right, is the thing. Yeah. And I guess the thing with don't get me wrong, VS Code is great. My one problem with VS Code is like every time I start it up, hey, we applied updates. Let's reboot or restart. Oh, hey, you need to update those plugins. Hey, I see you're working on a Python script. Would you like to install the Python plugins? And I'm just like, no, go away. Leave me alone. I'm a grumpy old sysadmin now. So, anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
That's cool. The nerdy stuff I've been working on. So anyway, with that, what do you think? Should we talk about AI agents, Mike, and MCP?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I've been getting into this a lot lately, and I don't know what your experiences are with AI in terms of. I mean, everybody's got a different level, and I know folks that hey, AI is just me using ChatGPT. At the basic level, it's, hey, I'm using Siri on my phone. So I'm using AI. Well, you're using a chatbot, really. I hate to tell you. Chatbot is not AI.
Right.
But you can go ahead and think you're using AI. That's fine. No problem. But to actually use real AI, you need obviously an LLM, right? You need a large language model or an SLM, a small language model. Pick your size, pick your t-shirt size, but you need that that background in order to actually interact with an AI identity. And I'm not calling it an agent because an agent is something different.
Something different. We'll get into that.
Yeah. But you need to actually, in order to interact with a model, that is AI. That's true AI. So I've been getting into this. And to be honest with you, if you take a look at it from, an AI agent standpoint, I know that some people think that AI agents are autonomous. They can be autonomous and they cannot be autonomous. They can be both.
Depends on how they're configured, just like anything in the SysAdmin world, right?
Exactly. So if you're familiar, what you just mentioned is your love for VS Code. With VS Code now, Copilot is everywhere, right? So Microsoft's got Copilot in everything. Copilot started out as a chatbot. It started out that way. Now it has evolved because the back end of Copilot is actually Azure Foundry, AI Foundry, which is, up in the cloud. That's the back end of it. And it is using actual models behind it. Now these are restrictive models, right? So you can customize Copilot with Copilot Studio, and you can change what models it talks to. But by default, a normal person, when they start up Office or they start up VS Code or they start up whatever, you're talking to the Microsoft prescribed intelligent model that sits behind Copilot. And it basically tells you everything that it wants you to know. So I've been experimenting with a bunch of different models and working with those models and trying to understand how different agents, which are the front end of the models, and how the agents can interact with those models. So if you take a look at an agent, like I said before, when you're in VS Code, you have something like GitHub Copilot or GitHub AI. That actually is an agent. You can have it because you can actually, there's a little selection where you can select whether you're going to ask it a question, but you can also do it as an agent where you're talking to it, in a conversational type thing. So it's really kind of cool when you start getting into the deep technical aspects of it, trying to understand, all the different things that you can do from the agent standpoint. You can't really control the models. I mean, you can create your own models, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy to create your own models. No, it's not. And you have to have access to vast amounts of data. It's not like you can just say, hey, search the internet. You could do that, but you can't, making your own model takes time and it takes training. It takes training time because the model has to learn from what you're telling it. So everybody uses these pre-created ones that Claude creates and Microsoft creates and Anthropic and OpenAI creates. So the agent part is customizable. The back end, not so much.
Right.
So you were going to ask
I was going to say, I think you're talking about LLMs and the difference between agents and the LLM itself, right?
Yep.
And I think where AI really clicked for me from a sysadmin perspective was when I took the time to spin up Ollama inside of my lab here at the house. I don't know if you're familiar with Ollama, Mike.
Yeah.
Basically, for the folks that may not be familiar with what Ollama is, it is essentially a don't know if I want to call it a runtime. It's basically a service that you can install on top of Linux. I think there's a Mac OS port as well. I think it runs on Windows too. But basically, it allows you to load up open source LLMs on your own hardware. Now, you can do it via CPU if you want, but if you want to have a good day, you should probably have a GPU in that system. And what's nice about Ollama, I found, is that if you have multiple GPUs in the system, it figures that out and it will spread the workload across multiple GPUs.
Exactly.
And so, that is when the whole LLM thing really clicked for me, is where it's like, okay, I can load up this model and do this, and I can load up this model over here, and maybe this one's a little bit better for coding, or this one's better for quick responses, right? Excuse me. And then the other thing you can do with Ollama is you can create a front. Well, it's not Ollama that is the front end. You can pair it with a front end that allows
OpenAI.
Like correct.
Open Web UI.
Yep. Open Web UI. Where you can actually create that chat GPT-ish type of functionality. And then you could do like I did. I published it out to the house, So like if my wife and kid wanted to use it, they could, and everything would stay local in the house, right? So I found that exercise of setting that up to just be very helpful from a understanding the large picture type of thing, right? So
and it is hard for some folks to just wrap their heads around what it actually is. Some folks don't care, to be honest with you. They just don't care. They just want Siri to answer their questions, or Alexa or Google or whoever. Just I'm going to ask you something, answer me, or tell me something. But for people who actually want to use it to be productive in their lives, in their personal and professional lives, it's good to have a little understanding around it, like like you had mentioned. So.
Yep, and it's helpful to go through that setup. It reminds me of like back when I first started tinkering with Kubernetes. Like anybody who looks at Kubernetes for the first time, they're like, "What the heck is this?" There's so many different components. I set up Kubernetes, from scratch one time just so I could properly understand it. I guess I'm one of those learners that I learn best by doing. So that's why I've always had a lab environment, right? So anyway. The next thing I wanted to get into, Mike, we've kind of talked about, LLMs, what are agents? The other thing I wanted to make sure we cover here is provide some example use cases, right? So if I'm a sysadmin, okay, cool, LLMs, agents, how could they help me, right? I mean, there's still people that haven't really dug into that. The couple of things that come to the top of my head are, alert triage, automating some incident response actions, right? Like you have an agent that, I don't know, maybe is watching a ticketing system or a system log, and something happens, it classifies the event and takes a certain action automatically based on a series of conditions, right? The other thing here that I've seen mentioned a lot in terms of AI use by sysadmins is this phrase, reducing cognitive load. Because as sysadmins, we have all this stuff that we're responsible for, right? And I don't know about you, Mike, but like my brain can only remember so many things. And when the sky is falling, stuff is burning down, and stuff needs to be fixed, well, the more I can reduce my cognitive load, the better. So it's useful from that perspective as well. So I don't know if there's specific use cases that come to mind. I know you mentioned the home automation stuff, but I don't know if there's any others you can think of.
Oh, absolutely. So giving presentations and talks around this, and, talking to people who are actually, flipping switches and turning dials and, in their infrastructure, whether it be, server hardware, storage, networking, whatever, you have the ability to fine tune the LLM and the type of agents that's you're talking to ask it, to do specific things, or ask it for specific information. So as an example, I can go into ChatGPT today and I can say, create a GPT. And I can go out and tell it that I want it to be focused on these areas. And I can tell it, as an example, I created one for 3D printing, which, I mentioned before. Yep. So I tell it to be focused, whenever I talk to this particular GPT, which is an agent, basically, whenever I talk to that agent, I want you to be focused on 3D printing, everything from polymers and filament and the electronics that are involved and the modeling, the 3D modeling that's involved and all that. And I give it that structure. Okay. And then when I go out and I ask it questions or I ask it to do something for me, like create a model around this, its focus is narrowed to the point that, it's much more exact. It doesn't introduce, I shouldn't say it doesn't, but it introduces less what we call hallucinations. Because AI can hallucinate, because if it doesn't know the answer to something, it'll make stuff up. It can. It does. It just makes stuff up. And it doesn't say, no, I don't know. It says, hey, I'm just going to throw this in there and see if it, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And that's why, you can always tell if something is AI generated, because sometimes they make no sense at all. Right.
Yep.
But I can have that agent actually, quote unquote trained, for me to be very specific. And that to me is very valuable, because then I don't have to worry about all the extra background noise. Now, if you're talking about a sysadmin or you're talking to somebody in an infrastructure standpoint, you could have it focused, because there are vendors out there even that will create agents. And now we're getting into the realm of MCP, Model Context Protocol servers, right?
Yep.
They will create an MCP, okay, that will be focused around their product, around their particular technology, maybe with a product. Like, as an example, I created MCP for API, right? So I have an API that you can talk to and you can do things with. I created an MCP where when you load that MCP, you ask it direct questions. It only references that API, and it's exact. It's not like it goes off fishing for answers around the internet or anything like that,
Right.
Which can introduce, number one, hallucinations, but also errors. It can introduce errors. Now, I've seen people take it and say, well, I don't have to, as a good example that you relate to, I don't have to learn PowerShell anymore, because I can just have an agent do it for me. That is the opposite of what you should be thinking, right? Because AI is not always going to be right. And it's, you're going to say, okay, go out and create me a script that, goes out and does this, and does A, B, and C. All right. So the script goes out, you get this script and you're like, oh, this is awesome. This works. I'm going to run it against all my servers.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it hits A. Okay. A flies just fine. Oops. B doesn't work. B breaks things. And then C destroys them. That is a bad day. That is the definition of a bad day, and what we call a RGE, which is a resume generating
events. Yep.
Exactly. But yeah, you people think that this is just, it'll do it for them. But you're not, number one, you're not learning anything. So your brain is like, not functioning. But number two, you don't know if it's right. It's not always right. You need to double check. You need to make sure. I can run the same ask against two different agents. Say I do it against Claude, maybe a Sonnet with a Sonnet backend, and I do it against ChatGPT. I'll get two different answers.
Yeah.
All right.
For sure.
And we proved that. Me and Steven Booker with Microsoft proved that in a demonstration we did, where we just asked three different agents about the weather. We said, what's the weather in Seattle, today? And we got 3 answers, close, but they were all different.
All different.
They weren't even the same degree. So it's like, that's interesting. That those are things you have to know, you have to think about.
Right. And I think that is a very good point you bring up, especially when, we're looking at this through a sysadmin context, is you can't, because the doom and gloomers out there, AI is going to take all our jobs. It's going to do everything, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be job displacement to a degree, I think, right?
It's going to help your job.
Correct. It's going to help your job. And so let's stick with the PowerShell example here for a second. I do love LLMs and AI when it comes to PowerShell generation, because when I need to make a script for something, it probably gets me 60 to 70% of the way, instantly.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Sometimes it does funny things, right? I don't remember exactly what command it was. But basically I had a PowerShell prompt. For some reason, it created a function to run a single command. It could have just called the command, but it made a function for it instead. And I'm like, why? Why are you making a function to do a single thing?
That's a hallucination. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's okay, would it have worked? Probably, but you still want it to follow best practice at the end of the day, right? For the script that you're building. The example I always bring up, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before, in terms of just, trusting whatever AI generates and just running it against your stuff. I saw a news article, it's a couple months back now, where a guy had a music library that he had curated over years, right? Had a bunch of files and subfolders, and I'm talking on disk, right? You remember the old Winamp libraries that we used to build back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, he was trying to, figure out a way to organize it more quickly rather than doing things by hand. So he asked AI, hey, build me a script, and this is what my folder structure looks like. Give me a script to move all these files. Well, he didn't know or didn't understand code, or he just assumed it was correct and just ran it. Well, it ended up being destructive, right? And it deleted a whole bunch of his library, right? So hopefully he had a backup. So
yeah, and that's the thing that people don't understand. And we're just talking about code, right? But you get into the realm of what people actually use it for. People use it to write their resumes. And I have seen some really weird resumes come out of AI. And sometimes they don't even, the person that's asking the AI to generate it for them, they don't take the time to read everything that's in it. AI is like a spammer or a phishing, email. You have these little misspelling mistakes, and you have these little grammar issues, or things like that. If you have to look at all that. You really do, because it will pop up, and when you're going for a job, it could bite you. I just got something, as a matter of fact, from a colleague of mine who was asking for a solution for a customer. And what the customer did was they basically said, we need to do this. And they put it into AI. They put it into a chat GPT prompt. And then they sent it to us and said, this is what we need to do. And literally what they gave us was incomprehensible. It was to the point I'm like, what are you trying to accomplish? Because this is just going in circles. It makes no sense.
This seems good enough. Paste. Yeah, it'll be fine. Nothing bad's going to happen today.
Yeah. That meme of the dumpster fire, happening. Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a good one. There's another case I'm thinking of where I have to review a lot of technical articles as part of my day job. And I had a technical article come across my desk. I don't remember if it was a colleague or I think it was an outside source. I don't remember. Anyway, technical article came across my desk and, hey, Andy, check this for technical accuracy. It was right from a technical perspective, but I instantly knew that it was written by AI because every paragraph of this article, and there were, 9 or 10 paragraphs, every paragraph ended with nearly the same sentence. Well, this issue demonstrates that blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was every paragraph. This issue demonstrates, again and again, and it completely lacked that human, written flair that you get from human created articles, right? So
exactly. And I've had to review the same type of technical stuff, and I've seen it where in one article, they've gone from speaking in a first-person voice to a third-person voice.
Whoops.
I mean, literally, they're like, oh, and I do this. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, and they do that. And I'm like, wait a minute. Who's they?
Right? Oh, boy. Good times.
So, and to be honest, Andy, it's everybody's just starting to get used to it. I mean, it's a big buzzword now, right? With vendors and manufacturers, AI is just a big buzzword, but it's coming into everybody's lives now. I mean, you have Copilot showing up in Office Suite. You have, AI showing up everywhere now. And it's becoming kind of a norm, but people are still adjusting to it. So I think it's kind of like cell phones. Nobody really got cell phones when they first came out. They were like, wow, that's going to die. That's really gimmicky. Nobody wants to be on their phone all the time.
Right.
Now people can't survive without their cell phones. And literally, I think there will be a point where you will have that same type of adoption for AI. It takes time for, people, cultures, and, environments to evolve to that point. But I think learning it now is really kind of key. And that's why I've kind of got into it and trying to understand agents and work with agents and stuff like that, because my curiosity is piqued. And I just, I want to learn about this stuff as much as I can. Number one, because I'm getting old and I'm probably going to start forgetting stuff. So I want to start learning. I want to keep it in my head while I still can. And then maybe I'll dump it out to Vim. I'll dump it out to Vim after that, and I'll just keep that.
There we go. I was going to say, I was forgetting stuff by the time I was 16 years old. Like, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast this morning, let alone, what the syntax for grep returning, a line that's 54 lines down. I don't know. I'm coming up with some really obscure grep example.
You got to add awk and set in there too. You got to have it, so yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Well, Mike, one thing I really want to clarify here before we get ready to wrap things up here is I want to kind of circle back to MCP, Model Context Protocol. And I think the really interesting thing about Model Context Protocol is I'm starting to see vendors now that they provide a service of some sort, and they give a MCP server that people can reference and use with their own AI agents.
Right.
So I think it was the Azure MCP was recently released, which basically uses Azure as a source for agent responses, which from an infrastructure perspective, I think is immensely powerful, right? And I haven't tested it myself yet, but I could see us somewhere down the line getting to a stage where I type to an agent, I say, hey, I need to stand up a new application. I need a VM running some sort of database software. Let's go with MariaDB, right? And then I need a web front end. Go build it for me, agent, right?
Yep.
And I think MCPs are going to be integral in enabling that type of situation in the future, right?
Yeah. That type of intelligence and that type of automation that doesn't require the manual creation of workflows and using 3 or 4 or 5 different apps in order to accomplish an automation, or creating API calls when, the agent just takes care of that for you and does all that for you. A good example of that is like the Microsoft Learn came out with their own MCP.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can actually load the MCP local on your machine, and it can reference the entire Microsoft Learn library, which is pretty impressive if you think of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it is really impressive. And what people are like, well, why would I do that? Why don't I just go out to Google and I'll search for it? Well, yeah, you could, but you're not actually using the power of AI to help you, refine what you're looking for and find exactly what you're looking for. You're just using a Google search. You're just using a search engine which uses bots, uses robots.txt and things like that. That's all that search engines do. So yeah, the MCPs, I mean, to be honest with you, there are a lot of, I'll be transparent. There are a lot of useless MCPs that have been created. And you can actually go to GitHub and you can put in MCP and you will get thousands of MCP servers that have been created. I think there's actually a repo out there that I referenced, which was I don't know if you ever heard of the awesome lists. So there's a person or a couple people on GitHub that create awesome lists, and they're awesome lists for this and awesome lists for that and awesome lists for the, whatever.
Right.
And they've done one for awesome lists of MCP servers, and they just curate all of the MCP servers that they can find, and they put them into categories. So, I mean, you have MCP servers for just about everything, and it's just growing. It's literally thousands and thousands of them now. But are they useful? Is it something that's useful? Because when you load an MCP and you talk to it, you're only getting what's in the frame set of that MCP. You're not getting outside of that MCP. You're not, getting information that may be more relevant. You're really narrowing the focus. That's what MCP is about. You're using a model context. So it's really helpful, I think, for specific things, but not for everything, right? And it's really easy to create your own. They have something called Fast MCP, which basically you can have an MCP up and running in like 5 minutes. And you don't even have to know code, you don't have to. You just have to give it some context or give it a back end of information, and it'll create an MCP server.
Way it goes.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see where this goes in the next 4 to 5 years. There's going to be very much a governance and security aspect of it. I actually had governance and security, and more specifically tooling on my list for this episode, but this topic is vast. I think we're going to have you back for part 2, Mike, and we'll go into tooling, we'll go into security and governance as well too. So,
yeah, sure. And I just want to, let everybody know that, I mean, as you can tell, I mean, this is not like this is not what I do in my day job. Right. These are things that I'm just really curious about. And I just, I look at this stuff all the time. I don't know if you recall, but in the early days, we didn't have Google, right? We had these massive 1,000-page, user guides and install guides. And I would go to bed with those things and literally read 100 pages before I would go fall asleep. And that's the only way you could really consume information. Now it's, you can consume it up, down, sideways, however you want. But it's always good to keep learning, and you don't always have to be, focused about your job and what you do. Expand your knowledge and widen your lens, if you will. You never know when you might find something that just like piques your interest and you're like, this is really cool. I want to learn this.
Oh yeah.
So
for sure. So, well, Mike, I think we've gone for 53 minutes here almost.
I'm sorry.
No. This has all been great information. This is fantastic information. Like I said, we'll have to have you back for a part 2. Cause like I said, I think this is a vast topic that probably necessitates 2 parts. Right. So, we'll have to have you back, my friend.
That would be great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Maybe next time we can have Eric on too. We can all get back together.
Yeah. We've talked about that, so we'll have to get that sorted out. So,
all right.
Well, appreciate you being here, Mike, as always. So good to talk to you again.
You got it. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, definitely. And folks, appreciate you spending some time with us today. Hopefully you found some value in today's episode. If you did, go ahead. And I hate myself a little bit every time I say this. Smash that like and subscribe button. But I have to say it, right? And I have to do my other plugs as well, too. We also have a companion newsletter for the show. We have newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. And it's a weekly newsletter where we curate a whole bunch of awesome community links. We, talk about a specific theme each week. So, for example, this week's theme was, I forget exactly how I titled it. I wrote it, not that many days ago. You'd think I would remember it, but something along the lines of that invisible work that no one sees that keeps everything running, right? So that was the theme this week. The invisible work that sysadmins do that keeps the digital world spinning, right? So anyway, that was this week's theme. We also include some handy tools every week. I think I talked about Ping Plotter this week because I may or may not have been angry at a certain ISP recently and had to prove that, it was their problem and not mine. Story of my life. Anyway, so I highly suggest you guys check that out. That's newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. And again, all the platforms we're available on. If you don't, you can find all of them at www.sysadminweekly.com. And I'm still working on the Substack. See, we've gotten 55 minutes in and I'm losing the ability to speak. The Substack podcast. I'm going to start posting on Substack, their podcast platform, as well as all of our other platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube, right? So anyway, we'll let you all get back to your day. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.
Cheers.